Good morning. I love hearing your voices. Good morning to you out there in online world. We're so happy that all of you are joining us today. Thank you. I know it's Sunday morning. You could be doing a lot of other things, but you're here, and we love that. You can find out a lot about us by going to our website, oldtownfg.com. Follow us on social media, share us on social media. You can even share this message right now. You can hopefully encourage people with what I'm going to try and share with you. One quick reminder, we've been saying this for the past few weeks, but please update your mailing address and your email and your phone number and all of that too, because we are going to be mailing out our year-end statements. And you can do that by going online again. Well, it is www, but oldtownfg.com. Fill out a Connect card and just put your information in there, and you will be good to go. So, if you haven't noticed, I am not Pastor Rudy. I know, it's shocking. Pastor Rudy and his beautiful wife, Charlene, are off and celebrating their 20th anniversary. So, hi guys, I know you said you'd be watching, but if you're not, it's okay. Yeah, you can clap. 20 years. That's amazing. They set an amazing example for all of us. So even my husband and even me, and we've been married longer than them, so we love them. But that means that I'm here doing this for him. So fasten your seatbelts with me. I do need to say, as I was coming up here today, I noticed that I think it might be time for the Christmas decorations to come down. I can't tell if you're all in agreement with me or not, but they're coming down Thursday. We have our awesome team that's going to help me with that, so that'll be great. I think if you guys were watching a few weeks ago, Pastor Rudy actually gave me a really hard time because I took down some of our Christmas decorations at home the day after Christmas. I want to point out, we actually had most of ours up before they did. So I'm just saying. Yes, it was just time. And I love Christmas decorations, but if you don't take them down, you don't get to put them back up, and then it's not magical, and all of those things are just lost. But I really, really, really do love Christmas. I love all of the things about it. I love the decorations, obviously. I like making the Christmas cookies and decorating them. This year, we had all of our kids and their fiancés and, well, they're not wives yet, girlfriends here, and we did a Christmas light scavenger hunt. We just did fun things. I love it. But it's a lot of things sometimes. And I may have had a moment that wasn't such a pretty moment about Christmas. So here's a confession to you from me. It was right before Christmas, and I was standing in our kitchen, and I'm thinking, okay, who's going to be here this week? Who are we feeding? I need to make an Instacart order. Did I get this gift? All these things are just running through my mind, and my mind is kind of more going like this, not like this. Drake walks in. He's like, babe, it's going to be fine. What are you worried about? I wish I could tell you that I looked at him and just took this calm, cleansing breath and said, you're right. I don't know what I'm worried about. I did not do that. I pretty much stepped up on a soapbox, reminded him that he had a wife and a secretary that helps him get all of his things accomplished, and I could not be stopped at that point. I went on to say that he had no idea what went into planning Christmas and the gifts and the execution and all of that. And that was not a proud moment for me, because you know what I said next? I said, Christmas wouldn't even happen without me. That's terrible. I need to just hide again. Every time I think, I've been looking at this a lot this week, and every time I look at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to say that out loud. But I said it, and I'm sorry. I said it. But even though none of that was true, except for the wife and secretary part, because he really does have a wife and secretary, I'm pretty sure a lot of the ladies might be able to identify with me. And I think that that's not untrue. And men, I don't know how you feel when you're in situations where you feel like you're kind of carrying all of the load on your shoulders and no one is helping you, especially maybe that one person is not stepping up. I don't know what that example is for you, but I'm sure that you have felt it. So that brings me what I'm going to talk about today, which is more like who I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to be talking about Mary and Martha and what it means to be in the presence of Jesus. And in case you don't know who they are, Mary and Martha were sisters, and Lazarus was their brother, and they were all best friends with Jesus. And what I'd like to share about that, it happens in Luke, and it's in chapter 10. And this is a moment that Martha is having with, Mary and Jesus and everybody being there. As they continued their travel, Jesus entered a village. A woman by the name of Martha welcomed him and made him feel quite at home. She had a sister, Mary, who sat before the master, hanging on every word he said. But Martha was pulled away by all she had to do in the kitchen. Later, she stepped in, interrupting them. "Master, don't you care that my sister has abandoned the kitchen to me? Tell her to lend me a hand." The master said to Martha, "Dear Martha, you're fussing far too much and getting yourself worked up over nothing." That sounds very familiar to me right now. "One thing is essential, and Mary has chosen it. It's the main course, and it won't be taken from her." It's pretty direct, but I have to say, my first reaction still tends to be somewhat divided. I can totally identify with Martha when it comes to hosting and planning and executing and preparing and all of those things. And think about it. Back in the day, they had dirt floors, and people brought the dirt in from the outside to the dirt inside. And they didn't have running water. They certainly didn't have hot water. They probably had to grind their own wheat, which is nothing I would do because I'm allergic to wheat, but you get the picture. There's a lot that they had to do, and it was probably really hard to feel like nobody was helping, especially Mary. And it's moments like this that are kind of similar to mine that led to my pre-Christmas tantrum not happening without me. It also lends itself to an attitude of being judging and being condescending and comparison, none of which are pretty things. And all of the lights and all of those yummy Christmas cookies are not going to even come close to making that kind of moment pretty in any way. And on top of that, Martha's attitude was not fostering good vibes. She was not being positive. She was so busy with the things, not only was she missing the whole point of what it meant to host Jesus, she was potentially taking that away from Mary. But Jesus has a response to that, and it's pretty interesting if you look at it. He says Martha's name twice, and I feel like that might kind of be to really make sure that she is paying attention. And I feel like I would probably need to have my name said twice because my head would be going like this, and I probably really wouldn't focus on this and what you're saying to me in that moment. But I kind of picture Jesus having this gentle presence, but he probably spoke in a pretty stern and maybe even a commanding voice to Martha and just telling her that there is only one essential thing, and Mary chose it. She chose Jesus. Deuteronomy 8:3 reminds us of this too. It says, "Man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes out of the mouth of the Lord." Food is obviously important for our bodies, but what Jesus had and still has is food for our souls. And that kind of nourishment is so much more important. And it's ours to keep, but we also need to protect that. And I think it's easy to kind of slip into this, yeah, but what about the other guy mentality? I do it sometimes. Peter did it. He questioned Jesus about John in John chapter 21, and that's what Jesus is getting ready to go and be crucified, and he's talking to Peter, about his love. And what does Peter do? What's John doing? He's so much more focused on John and the other guy that he's not even present in the moment, and he misses the whole point. And sadly, I think sometimes even when we're trying to do the right thing or we believe we're doing the right thing, we tend to be very self-focused. And unfortunately, I think Christians can be really guilty of this. And I know that sounds really mean, and I'm not trying to be mean, but I just think that it's really, really true. It's easy to look at all the ways that we're serving and all the ways that we're stepping up, and we're looking at the, hey, how come this person isn't serving or any of that? And not that serving is bad. I mean, it's really, really needed. But sometimes we're just kind of serving under the wrong, I guess we're serving for the wrong reason. And maybe it's to show that we can do it all, or maybe it's for the accolades. And accolades are not bad. I mean, if words of affirmation is your love language, you get that. It fuels you to be told, good job, and I understand that. Or maybe you're serving just because you feel like you're supposed to, but your heart isn't really in it. For me, I tend to be a people pleaser. I say yes to a lot of things, and I even offer things that probably I have no business offering up, but I just think I can do it because I want to make people happy. And trust me when I say serving in the areas that are not your strength, those areas are not going to fuel you. I learned that firsthand. Well, I've learned that a lot of times, but I was thinking about this, and there was a very long time ago, my kids were still in school and young, and I had this bright idea that we should host a golf tournament. It would bring the dads in, and I would get dads involved in school. I'll host it, yeah. The problem is I didn't golf. I don't think I had ever played more than 9 holes. I don't know how long it took me to realize that there's this little course in Hillsborough somewhere I think it's called an executive course or something. There's only 9 holes. I thought that was the whole thing. I didn't even know there were 18 holes, so. And then I had no idea that there's more than one kind of tournament. So when I'm contacting the Pumpkin Ridge event planner, I had to actually be explained all the different kinds of tournaments so that I could choose one. And I'm so thankful that that was a phone call, because I'm sure his eyes were rolling out of his head and he was chasing them across the room as he's telling me all the different kinds and which one do you want, lady. It was really embarrassing. But it turned out that it ended up being a really good thing for our school. It was a success. The problem is, it was not a good thing for me or my family. I mean, my kids, like I said, they were really young. I think my youngest, Connor, was still in a little car seat, so I don't know what I thought I was doing trying to do something like that. But it just makes for a really good example of trying to accomplish the wrong things. They're just going to suck the living life right out of you and the people around you. And I wish I could say that that was my only time I've done that, but sadly, I continue to have many Martha moments, and my family pays the price for that. Mary, though, on the other hand, she understood. She understood that Jesus invites us to set aside our things, set aside our self-appointed priorities so that we can receive the peace of his presence. And in sitting at Jesus' feet, Mary got to just rest in the atmosphere of Jesus. Just think about that for a second. Every time I say atmosphere of Jesus, it just makes me everything just relaxes, and I just feel like that would be such a beautiful place to be, and we get to be there. I just think that we need to have an awareness or this acknowledgement that my things or our lists, all of those things, our agendas, they might not actually be the priority, especially when they are not the priority for other people. I am really guilty of putting that priority on other people. But I love that Mary saw the bigger picture. And she understood that they were doing more than hosting Jesus as a guest. They were hosting him as a teacher. Listen to a different version, the NLT's version of the Luke chapter 10 passage I read. This is what Jesus said. But the Lord said to her, "My dear Martha, you are so worried and upset over all of these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her." Did you catch that one part? Mary understood that one thing worth being concerned about. And I love how, as Jesus speaks this truth to Martha, he's not condemning her, and he's not condemning us ever. Instead, he's just speaking to our priorities and just emphasizing that he is the one thing. He should be our priority. And he calls us to look to him, and he calls us to rest. In Matthew 11, he says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Isn't that pretty? "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." I actually was doing a different Bible study this week. It's in a little app called Lectio 365, and this verse came up, and I loved it because I'm going to read it to you, but I read this about that verse, and I had never really heard it in that perspective, and this is what it said. "The good news is that Jesus promises me rest, but then he says, 'Take my yoke upon you.' In Jesus' day, a yoke was what a farmer used to connect two oxen to plow to make sure they walked together in the same direction at the same speed. A yoke sounds like an added burden, but the yoke isn't mine, it's his. If I am yoked, the one who is gentle and humble, or as the Bible translation sometimes put it, meek and lowly, then it's going to change the pace at which I walk, and I will find rest for my soul." Isn't that awesome? I feel like I just want to clap for that. It was like this epiphany in my own head when I read that. I really, really love that. I love the image that when we are connected with Jesus and we go in the same direction at the same speed, we get to experience rest. It's just this light bulb, and my soul needs rest. I'm sure your souls need rest in Jesus. He's our rest. He's just right there, and we miss it almost a lot. Well, I do. I think it's important to point out, though, that rest doesn't always mean that you're just kicking it and chilling and sitting back with a cozy little blanket and napping. Not that that's bad, trust me. I love my cozy blankets. If you've been to my house, I have a lot of them in all of the rooms, so I get that. But I think that resting can still mean being active, but it's just resting in the confidence of our faith. I know that sounds kind of weird, and maybe you're thinking, how on earth am I supposed to rest and work or serve at the same time? That is a very good question, and I wish that I had the perfect answer just for you. I think it will be unique to all of us. And I do want to remind everybody that this is for everybody, not just the ladies. But being like Mary, it doesn't mean that you're just sitting back and idle or being complacent. It is a balance of work and rest. And I would even add patience in there because sometimes it's really hard to sit back. And in a way, COVID has put us in this place of forced rest. And I know that looks different for all of us. But it also makes filling our time with things like Netflix and TikTok pretty darn easy. Well, I've never actually really been on TikTok. I've just seen TikTok, but I can see where it can just suck you in. But I also think that it fosters this sense of being so busy and so worried about so many things. I mean, the political things, the economic things, all of the things that it can make my shoulders go like this, even just thinking about them, that we end up being like Martha, and we're just missing the whole point. And I don't know what that looks like for you. I know some of you are working from home, so it's really hard to separate your work from rest. I know some of you are basically homeschooling with distance learning. That's a whole nother realm in itself. Some of you are doing that at the same time, and we are praying for you. That is hard. And I don't know all the other circumstances because I know that they're countless. But I do want to encourage you to stop for just a minute and just think about this. Is Jesus telling you that you are doing too many things? That's kind of a big question, and some things are necessary, I get that. But I also am all too familiar with that subliminal tap on my shoulder that I sense when I'm just doing too much and when I'm overdoing, especially when it leads me to comparing what I'm doing into how much or how little somebody else might be doing. And I need to pay attention to that so much more. And I need to ask myself, what is it that God is calling me to do? Colossians 3:23 is just a really good reminder to keep in mind when you're thinking of all these things. Whatever you do, Work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord and not for human masters, including yourself. And doing the right things at the right time, those are the things that are going to fuel you. Those are the things that are going to be centered on pleasing Jesus, and you'll be walking at that same pace with him. And Jesus made the most important commandment so clear in Matthew 22, love the Lord your God with every passion of your heart, with all the energy of your being, and with every thought that is within you. This is the great and supreme commandment. So resting and serving, it's just a balance, and I'm wrapping it up here. I also know that it's not easy to find that balance. I know that firsthand. And I also know that in looking at past choices, that hindsight can just offer some really good foresight. And for me, in thinking about my pre-Christmas tantrum, it was a really good reminder that led me to letting go of being in charge of my daughter Madeline's birthday. It was her birthday on Friday. It was fun. We can clap, yeah. Happy birthday, Madeline. That was really sweet, whoever did that. Thank you. But in the past, I've done all those birthday things. I planned the dinner. I planned the fun. I planned the dessert and the gifts. But on Monday morning, I got a text from Pastor Rudy asking if I would speak this Sunday. And another confession, I think I hyperventilated. And every time I reread that, going, what? What? Because I usually have a few weeks to plan and prepare, and he comes alongside me in that, and this felt like I had a few minutes. And I said yes, and I said yes in faith, and my family supported me in that. And that meant that I had to let go of what I would normally do in a week and what I would normally do for Madeline's birthday and let my family take over. That was huge for me. I mean, Drake took care of the shopping and the food for the week, and my son Ian's girlfriend, Callie, she took over the birthday. And I got to tell you something. She is pretty amazing. She had her own things that she's balancing and studying for a nursing test, and she's getting ready to move out. I mean, it's a lot. But she did an amazing job, and she made the things that I would have stressed about and worried about and tried to squeeze into things. She took that away from me, and she was able to do it. And I wouldn't have executed it not even half as well as she did. My girl felt really, really loved. So that's all to say that balance is just knowing when to get up and do something, or when to sit and let somebody else have the opportunity. It's also about discerning each situation and actively just listening to the Spirit. Because here's the really beautiful thing about listening to. God already knows all of the things, and he sees everything, and he has it all orchestrated, so he is going to be the one that's going to be able to meet everybody's needs through our obedience. We don't have to be the one trying to do it all, because God is the one doing it all. I really want to say amen right now. Amen. Yeah, somebody say that with me. Thank you. For example, I'm actually up here, hopefully making some sort of sense, and letting go of some of the things let other people love on my girl and celebrating her birthday. I think there's supposed to be a picture of her. Yeah, there we are. We don't normally have the dog at the table, but he was just there. And the only things we're missing that would make that perfect are Connor and Abby. They're in Phoenix, and we love them so much. It also let Pastor Rudy and Charlene get away, and he was able just to fuel his bride's heart, which just needs it right now. Any of you who are teachers understand that. And it just goes to show that God really is so, so good at being God. And even more so when we're listening to him and following his lead and walking alongside him as he leads us. So maybe you're called to serve. Maybe you're called to rest. It's just important to know and remember that God doesn't love us based on our actions. He loves us based on who we are in him, and his presence is always in us. So I think it's pretty fair that we try and be present for him. So while I might have some very strong characteristics of Martha, I want to be a Martha who learns from Mary, and I focus on God's presence in my life. And all of those other things, they're just fillers. I kind of think of it like junk food versus what actual nourishment is. It's the difference between having a full plate of things that just you walk away with your stomach not feeling good and all of the anxiety and things compared to being fulfilled by the sustenance of Jesus, which is so much better. So having said all of that, and with 2021 still being a pretty new year for us, I'm going to ask you this. What will you change that will allow you to feel the presence of Jesus while being active in your faith and purpose? That's kind of a big question. I get that. If that was asked to me right now, I'd be like, I don't know. But think about this. What are the things that you've maybe thought about stopping? Or what's something that maybe you're still doing, and maybe your wife or your husband or your friend or dog, maybe even your dog is giving you some kind of a hint that, stop the things already, and asks you, why are you still doing it? So what is it? And why are you doing it? And I'm not necessarily talking about a sinful thing here. I mean, that's just a whole another thing. But whatever your it is, do you hear Jesus or have a sense of him? And another thing is that we need to remember this. If that something is led by God, then you have that permission to do it. But if it is not led by God, you have the permission to just stop and rest. And those are really big questions, I get that. And they could end up being a really big, life-changing question, and I get that too, but God is such a big God that it'll be okay. I'm asking those same things of myself. So I'm going to stop with that and just kind of let it marinate in your own hearts, and I hope that it kind of offers you something to look forward to for 2021, but for now, I'm just going to close this out in prayer. Heavenly Father, you know all of the things that we carry in our hearts and on our shoulders and in our minds. You know all of the things that cause our blood pressure to rise and our hearts to race. I know that I just don't want to operate like that anymore. I want to yield to your pace. Thank you that you invite us to step into your yoke. You're just ever present as our Father and a friend and our teacher. And I want to learn that and discern from your ways and your rhythm. I pray that for myself. I pray that for all of us. I pray that you'll inspire us with what will fuel us. And I pray as we enter this week and the weeks to come in 2021 that we'll just feel that sense of knowing when we need to work and when we need to serve or when we just need to sit back and rest in your presence. Because you truly are a teacher worth our attention, and we love you. Thank you for all that you do. Amen. Okay. We are going to continue with some worship from the talented CJ, but we will also be taking our offerings. So we're so thankful for all that you do and all that you give. And there are a few ways that you can give. You can send in a check to Old Town 2224 15th Avenue, Forest Grove, 97116, if you don't live in the zip code. You can also go online and go to the Giving tab, and that'll take over from there. There's an app, PushPay, you can give that way, but whatever you do, just thank you so much for being a part of that and helping us do what we do here at Old Town, because that really is a part of you. If you're attending in person here, we'll have some buckets at the back that you can hand out as you're exiting. And other than that, I just want to thank you. Pastor Rudy will be back next week, and have a fantastic week.